All right, welcome back to the latest Bebo Knows podcast, podcast 98. This is your host, Brian Bullock, and with me for the traditional NFL preview podcast is Seth Burn. Seth, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
So it's been about a year since we've last talked in this form. There's a fun NFL season last year, in my opinion, but here we are again with another preview pod. So I know when we started this podcast last year, I've pretty much kept the same outline as the podcast from last year because there's a lot of there's a lot of the same things we could discuss. But I know one of the first things you were discussing in the pod last year was some of the projects you were working on. So I think you were specifically talking about offensive line and secondary and pass rushers. So where are those projects at, and what are you doing as far as like improving your data models?
So, good news, bad news, or at least bad news first. The projects failed, but I also understand why they failed, and I have some idea of what I'm going to need to do next. Now, the projects failed because it is. Let's start with the offensive lineman. What I was able to do is able to understand when an offensive lineman failed in a play. And so on one half of the ledger, I would understand, all right, you missed a block, you allowed a sack, you committed a penalty, you didn't protect the quarterback or move the guy off the spot. All right, that's a minus for you. But what I couldn't do is I couldn't quantify what happens when someone did something really well. All right, you made this play work by not just blocking your guy, but getting in the way of a secondary guy, secondary downfield blocking. I couldn't quite figure out the value add. And so if I can't get both sides of the ledger, I'm not really going to get an accurate answer. And to eventually solve this problem, fortunately, it's going to take a lot of film and a lot of data entry until we can finally figure out just all right, this is what counts, and this is how much that is worth. And so that's the project there. For the secondaries, the trickier part is, was someone really helping you in coverage, or was that just guy just standing there? Was he just happened to be someone on the field? And it matters for the wide receivers. Were you double covered? I mean, was he really shading you, or not? Or was he just that was his position to play? And I'm not really describing that well because double coverage in and of itself is kind of rare. You don't have that many men on defense to spare two to cover one. But the question is just how much was that person directing this coverage to you, and how much should that hinder your ability to succeed as a wide receiver? And also, how much coverage are you taking away from the other guys on offense, helping them succeed? Here's a good defensive example: Khalil Mack. Also, Brian, are you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Khalil Mack just got traded from the Raiders to the Bears. We'll talk about this more in a bit, obviously. But the big thing is that's going to make the job for the other pass rushers on the Raiders much harder. Mack would take usually more than one blocker's attention on a given pass rush, which meant that Bruce Irvin got a lot more single blocking. That will no longer be the case. So not only do the Rangers lose Khalil Mack, they also lose some effectiveness from Bruce Irvin, which will both things will in turn make their secondary worse. So that's another thing. Judging secondaries in the view of their pass rush, defenses are really holistic things. And when one thing goes wrong, it's a whole cascade effect. And so the Raiders are about to discover a whole bunch of cascade effects on defense.
Okay.
And hopefully for the Bears' sake, they're going to get the positive side of that. Their second best pass rusher is now, well, what was the first best pass rusher will now be the second best pass rusher, and he's now going to have a much easier job with Khalil Mack being the one who's going to be the focus of the offensive attention. So for now, good for the Bears, bad for the Raiders. We'll see what happens in the long term with the Bears salary cap and the Raiders getting some draft picks.
Sure.
That'll play out in years.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I figure that the Bears, this is kind of their window to make a move like that with Trubisky being under a cheaper contract than he will be in like 5 years.
Yeah, that part certainly makes a lot of sense. I mean, I understand why the Bears did what they did, but what was telling to me was apparently it was the Bears and the Jets that were the two teams that were most competitive in terms of giving an offer to the Raiders. But if you're thinking about chasing a ring now, you think about the Patriots, you think about the Rams, who, despite having a young quarterback, have a weirdly small window due to their salary cap situations. You'd think of the Eagles perhaps trying to run it back, but no, it was actually some teams that were in danger of finishing in last place that we're looking at, Mac. And so it's kind of an odd situation. It's also possible that the Bears weren't interested in trading with those teams unless they were going to get a better package, given that those picks would come later in the round and would be inherently less valuable.
Sure. Okay. So you had mentioned last year that one of your projects was going to try to be the all 22 group. Now, I think you had mentioned to me that
That actually ran into
that
technical difficulties.
okay. So you actually had potentially have the chance to do this project, but there were just
Yeah,
technical issues.
yes. That I kind of blame people outside ourselves, but it would be a lot easier. I mean, I didn't even have time to think about this now that I only thought now that you brought this up. It'd be a lot easier if we could somehow have people in local markets just DVR the games. You get a lot higher resolution than when you're watching on your computer. And just have a whole slew of those as opposed to trying to buy the packages, deal with those tech issues I mentioned, and not get quite what you needed. Although watching the games as a little 22, so yeah, we're gonna have to figure something out there.
Okay. Did you already have the people lined up to do it? Like, I'm
Yes,
guessing
I
you had that
mean
part.
we started a group. There's a whole bunch of people that A, love watching football, and B, want to do something productive while they're watching football.
Okay.
Hence, all 22 film watching.
Sure.
Uh, and you could learn. You certainly learn a lot when you're doing it. You get to see when you just see everything play out. It, also, when there's no sound when you're here watching them play out, football is just a different game. It does become a lot more like chess in that sense. When you see, okay, this is what everyone's doing, and you start to see all the patterns appear and reappear, and you see, oh, that's different. So that's how he responded to this, and you get to see which coaches are brain dead and which coaches aren't. Yeah, the
I, I,
Chargers had a real problem with that for a lot of last year. I mean, an argument was made that they kind of fixed that at the end of the season, but you don't really fix brain dead. You simply change some things up. So
you try to hide the brain dead, I guess. I don't know.
exactly.
Cover it up. I'm guessing there's probably more brain dead than not brain dead. I mean, at least that's the impression that I get sometimes.
So you remember the Super Bowl, of course, we all do.
Of course.
The Eagles, for whatever problems they may have had, they were not brain dead.
No.
They had balls. They went for it in fourth down. They would change up constantly. Like Foles in his first three games in the regular season was pretty shitty.
Yeah.
But by the playoffs, they were running the stuff that he could do. They stopped doing the stuff that he couldn't. And I mean, they got lucky on the positive side of variance. He played his ass off in the final two games. But they were also just really doing a good job of putting him in a position to succeed. And a lot of coaches, they'll say, well, if you're not running the plays successfully, this is your fault. The Eagles say, no, it's our fault. Yeah, you get some of the blame, but so do we. And that's a big difference.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was just me, but like I was kind of like wondering towards week 17 if they were going to end up starting Sudfeld because of how bad Foles was looking. But now that you're mentioning the play calling, it was probably kind of the Eagles coach's faults as well.
I mean, I give the Eagles front office staff just major props for having a lot of stuff that was thrown at them last season. Like, I first was pretty down on Peterson because he was putting Wentz in a position to get hurt. And I think the preseason was the first year they had him, and I thought that was just completely idiotic. But I guess once you learn how to dial down your ball's nature, it works out in the end. So yeah, now Foles is probably going to miss week one. Sorry, not Foles. Wentz is going to miss week one. So we're going to get to see whether or not Foles can keep the magic up now that the opponents have had a year to scout. All right, this is what we're going to take away. Let's see what else you can do.
Sure.
So that chess match will continue against
Okay.
the Falcons.
Yep. All right. So I know in years past you've been tracking um, several different people. I think mainly Shats and
Well, Shatsy certainly has been the traditional, but there's an heir to the throne. I don't know how much you followed Pro Football Focus.
I have. I think I follow them on Twitter, but I don't really. I'm not on Twitter as much, so I don't really.
Totally understand.
Yeah.
All right. So, Pro Football Focus, they have been working very hard to make a name for themselves. And if you go to their website, they sell a variety of packages. And a lot of this stuff is statistical information on what they think about players, their player ratings. And that's all well and good. But they also sell something called Green Line. And Green Line are their picks for the game. They'll tell you what they think the money line for a game should be, what they think the spread should be, what they think the over-under should be, which is to say they are touts. Also, on their website, they have a link to MyBookie, what is a charitably rated C-rated sports book, which they will receive affiliate money from. That is basically them begging on their hands and knees, saying, "Track me." And so I certainly might. I might listen to their pleas. I mean, you get into your patterns, you get used to tracking Shatsy, but maybe we'll change it up this year. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, because you had said in the outline here that you might just not have the time to do it this year.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I've been fairly busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on here unrelated to football.
Okay.
So I'll do the best I can to find time for this. I mean, again, you get into habits and patterns. You get used to seeing, all right, how these people are doing every Sunday. But I'm not positive I'll be able to give the time commitment. We'll see. I'll try.
Okay. Okay. And if you're gonna track, that would pretty much be it, right? Would you be doing ESPN as well?
FBI, for whatever reason, the ESPN is in the habit of hiding information. They'll share some stuff sometimes. Other times they'll hide it on the website, and other times it just simply won't be there. And so that makes ESPN a bit trickier to track and a pain in the ass. So if they make it hard on me at all, I'm not going to go out of my way. I just don't have the time for that anymore.
Okay. Understood. All right. So with a few days left, I know you're probably in the preparation of writing your NFL preview. Is that correct?
Yeah, I finished. So the NFC is going to come out tomorrow. It'll come out on Monday. It's been edited. I just have to do the final after cut down day information pieces. That'll also, of course, affect the Bears. They're going to have a whole addendum.
Of course.
And the AFC will get sent off to editing on Tuesday. That should be ready to go by Thursday or Friday. There's no AFC games until Sunday, so
Sure.
have a little more time there. Yeah, that will all come out this week. I've finished writing everything but the AFC South.
Okay.
So I had to actually do a bit of a crash course in the AFC South this morning, just make sure I was up to speed on them. But yeah, it'll all be ready to go.
Okay, great. Now, so as a little teaser, can you give us some of your things that have your attention the most? Maybe things maybe you haven't written about. Maybe things that just kind of come off the top of your head from.
So let's start with the NFC.
Okay.
You have 4 heavyweights plus Atlanta. You have the Saints and Atlanta in the South. You have the Rams in the West. You have the Eagles in the East. And you have the Vikings in the North. So each division has its clear favorite. You have the Packers, who are also considered a strong team just because of Aaron Rodgers. The rest of the roster is garbage, but Rodgers is still the best quarterback in football. So they're still a contender. And you have Dallas as a potential dark horse as well. They're a strong team. So you have those seven. Oh, and of course, the 49ers, if Jimmy Garoppolo is the heir to Steve Young and Joe Montana, then they'll be in the hunt. But you have a very deep NFC roster of teams. All of the big four have potential flaw. I'll cover that more in my preview. But for the Eagles, it's their quarterback's health. For the Vikings, their offensive line has a lot of questions. And the Rams and the Saints have their own issues. So it's a matter of not just managing your strengths, but also minimizing your weaknesses. And that's what these teams are going to try and do over the course of the season. And injuries will take their toll. Now, in the AFC, you have the Patriots drop off, you have the Steelers drop off, and then you have everyone else. And this year, everyone else is weaker than they've been normally because you don't even have the Chiefs as a potential rival to the Patriots because they're switching gears, moving over from Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes, and so they're in a bit of a rebuilding year. So the AFC is more garbage than usual.
Okay. So you mentioned that New England drop off. So I guess their drop off is going to probably be hidden by the fact that the conference as a whole is somewhat down.
Yes, I mean that's what makes their life much easier. Like their first of all, their division is total and complete ass.
Oh
It's
yeah.
awful. And so that's 5.5 wins on average, just right there. Like they really should sweep. They might lose a game, but it's pathetic. And that's the problem the Steelers have. The Steelers, the Ravens actually could be quite a bit tougher this year. The Bengals, I mean, the Bengals always look good to me on paper, better than their projections. And I don't know if I somehow just like the way they build their roster and I'm overrating them. And the Browns, well, the Browns are the Browns, but they actually have a real quarterback this year, and their roster isn't terrible. They should no longer be an easy 2-0. So, like, that's advantage Patriots in their battle against the Steelers. Now, the Steelers have the advantage that they get the Patriots at home this year, which seems to happen fairly constantly these days. Hasn't worked out for the Steelers, but it's still an edge. So those two, it'll be a major surprise if one of those two isn't the number one seed in the AFC.
Yeah, I would think so. I can't think of anyone else that jumps off the page.
Yeah, I mean Jacksonville and San Diego are a couple of trendy picks, but those rosters just aren't on the same level as the Patriots and Steelers.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how well Houston would have done if Watson would have stayed healthy last year. They were doing okay, but
I mean, he was awesome, but I think
yeah,
he only lasted 6 weeks.
yeah.
And so you're going to have to see, all right, I mean, how much of that was just beginner's luck and how much of that is something that they'll be able to replicate over the course of the season. I'm certainly rooting for him. He looked awesome. And I was skeptical of him coming out of the draft. I was skeptical of his arm strength. But coming to the NFL, that wasn't really a problem. So he looked really, really good for those 6 weeks. And I hope that he looks as good this year.
Okay, yeah. No, and I guess we could just kind of steer off into the point that I had about rookie quarterbacks and young guns that are out there right now. But as far as like the young guys, the rookies, the guys who've been in the league only 1 or 2 years, who do you think? Well, I guess I could ask a variety of questions. Who you're most excited to see? Who you think projects to be the best, either short term or long term? I don't know how much thought you've given to that.
Well, Wentz last year was the MVP favorite before he got hurt. So Wentz was just looking amazing. And Goff was the most improved player because he was truly terrible, like historically bad his first year. And he was excellent last year. And so you had an amazing second year jump from him. Hopefully Watson will be able to take a huge jump in the second year. Like, again, he was really last year, but if he could fix the weaknesses he had, then you're looking at a great, great quarterback for the AFC South. So those are the three. Trubisky, sorry, Chicago, he did not look good. And his problems accuracy, which is the thing that was supposed to be his strength coming out of the draft. So I don't think that's going to be an easy fix. I'm not sure. Like, hopefully, like with a year of practice and seasoning and film watching and everything else and coaching, he'll be a lot better. But I don't know. I'm skeptical of Trubisky.
Yeah, what with yeah, when a new guy gets a new coach like this and gets like another system to learn, like do you find that to be as detrimental as like it sounds? Because like when you
Well, I
hear
mean, in general, change is hard because you have to learn new things. But let's look at Goff. He was awful in his first year, and then he got a new system, and he was not awful. And that's McVay, whatever his name is. I'm not quite remembering for certain, but that system for the Rams was fantastic. So if you're getting a new coach who's running something that's going to work, that's going to win battles against defense. Oh, sorry. Let's go back to the film project again. That was the other thing. How much of the credit I should give to the players and how much credit I should give to the coaching staffs for putting players in situations to succeed. If your coaching staff is winning the chess match, then yes, you're going to have an 18-yard pass, whatever else. But how much of that credit is yours, and how much credit is the coaching staffs for calling a play and designing a play that you'd be open against that defense against? So that was another thing that I'm struggling with and trying to apportion the value to. But yeah, so a good coaching staff and a good coaching scheme can make a big difference, and perhaps that'll help Trubisky.
okay, yeah, because obviously Goff was much better, and I don't know how often coaches come into a team and they're thinking, all right, this is how it's going to be no matter what. But I feel like you have to look at the personnel you have too and adjust to that. And I don't know how often NFL teams do that. I always get the impression that NFL coaches are like, it's my way or the highway, and you have to learn how
I
I
mean,
want to do it.
that's the old school personality style. Some coaches are better at adapting than others. I mean, you think of Don Shula as the most old school highway, my way or highway kind of guy, but he was great at adapting from being leading the rush based Dolphins in the 70s to the Marino based Dolphins in the 80s. He adapted very, very well. So, I mean, some old dogs can learn new tricks and some can't.
That's true. Okay, so we've been talking about coaching as far as like the new coaches that have come into the league this year, based on what you know from them as coordinators and coaches. What are your favorite ones, least favorite ones from the off season?
Um, Unfortunately, I'm not going to remember most of them from the top of my head. I'm terrible with names. And new coaches until you actually get to see them work. It's hard to know for sure. But let me tell you one that I don't like. And this we're going to be picking on the Raiders a little bit because the Raiders have earned it. They're bringing in Tom Cable to coach their offensive line, and he's one of those old school my way or the highway kind of guys. And it might already be hurting their offensive line. They asked their left tackle Penn to take a pay cut, and now they're going to move him over to right tackle. And he's recovering from Lisfranc surgery, but he was still a really good left tackle last season. And now they're going to have a couple rookies at left and right tackle, and we're going to see how that works for Carr. I know Penn was pissed when he saw the Raiders draft. It did not mean good things for him when people draft your replacements. So he's also 35 though. But that's a Tom Cable situation with the Raiders. Unfortunately, I don't remember all the other new coordinators, and so we're gonna just have to wait and see. I'm afraid.
Okay. So as far as teams that you're most interested to see, not necessarily ones that you think will be the best, but maybe the ones that you're most fascinated to watch from just a fan or maybe gambling perspective. Do you have a few in mind?
Are you talking about players, quarterbacks, coaches,
I
whatever?
guess a mix, either teams, players, coaches, however you want to.
Well, the Bengals remain tricky for me because again, I guess I like how they build their rosters and team, and I give them at least a chance to be significantly better than their projection. But let me here. I put together a list of teams, their expected wins, and their quarterback.
Okay.
And so let's start at the top. We have Tom Brady. The Patriots are expected to win 11.1 games. All right, that makes a lot of sense. Their schedule is soft. They have a real quarterback, even though he's getting old, and they've won the AFC. They've basically been 50-50 to win the AFC every year. So, all right. Second, you have the Vikings with Kirk Cousins. You have a quarterback in a new situation. He wasn't that great last year, but 2 years ago and 3 years ago, he was excellent in Washington. So we'll see how that plays out for the Vikings. Third, you have the Steelers with the Vikings were about 10.2 wins. Same with the Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger. Um, their schedule is a bit tougher than the Patriots, uh, but they're also considered to be roughly a full win worse, or almost so. So you have three competent quarterbacks, one in a new situation. Then you have Jared Goff with the Rams, another 10.1. All right, he was really good last year. Their defense was excellent. They just picked up Ndamukong Suh. They could have a very, very strong year. Then you have to go down to 9.8 for a defending champion, the Eagles, and that's because their schedule's considered harder than I think it is because I think the Giants are going to suck. The That's not the general consensus. So we're going to see about them. If Wentz were healthy, they'd probably be above 10. You have Drew Brees, the Saints also at 9.8, Aaron Rodgers at 9.7, Philip Rivers at 9.4, Matt Ryan at 9.3. And these are all competent quarterbacks, good teams. And then you drop down to 9.0 with Blake Bortles. Good Lord, how good would the Jaguars be if they had a real quarterback instead of Blake Bortles? I mean,
Yeah.
that is mostly a rhetorical question, but also kind of not. Like,
Yeah. I mean, considering the guys that were available, I don't know, like, if they
I
could have.
mean, the best guy available on the well, there's a couple guys who was available. Alex Smith was available. Um, what's his name? Kirk Cousins was available. Like there were a couple options, but like Bortles wasn't bad last year. He was mediocre, but he's still Bortles, which is why in the AFC Championship game, when the Jaguars were ahead, they went into complete turtle mode. Um, and they don't trust Bortles, and I understand why they don't trust Bortles. I see him every week in practice. Um, but I mean, and also they were screwed by a bad call on that fumble.
Yeah.
They would have won otherwise. But I mean, still, the fact that they don't trust their quarterback means we shouldn't either. And then you start getting to where things are more interesting. You have Deshaun Watson with the Texans at 8.8. That's a bit of faith in him. Like he was a difference maker last year, and the hope is he will be again. Then you have a big drop off to 8.3 for the Ravens and Cowboys. Joe Flacco, I think at this point we can admit that he's probably not elite. Um, but they got my favorite quarterback in the draft, Lamar Jackson. And so Joe Flacco, usually in the offseason, he just doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't do the offseason stuff for the team. He doesn't work with the wide receivers. This year he had a complete change of attitude and a complete change of heart. And I have to think that Lamar Watson was a big, big part of that. So perhaps Joe Flacco will have a bounce back year, and if not, he's going to get benched. So um, did I call him Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, you
Uh,
did call him Lamar Watson, but yeah, I got you. What?
yeah,
So a quick aside, what makes Lamar Jackson your favorite quarterback from the draft?
he made plays. Like he won the Heisman a couple years ago, and last year he wasn't really in contention, but he was still really, really good. And you saw, I don't know if you watched Alabama versus Louisville last night, but without him, Louisville was just garbage. And with him, they were an exciting and dangerous team. Like he made plays with his legs, with his arm, with his head. He made good decisions. I loved watching him. And the draft Knicks, they weren't that impressed with him, and neither was the NFL. I mean, he lasted. The Ravens traded up to the last pick of the first round to pick him up. So like I would have been happy had the Jets stayed where they were and picked him at number 6, and he ended up going number 32. So like I clearly like him more than others, but I think he's going to succeed in the pros. I think he's just a great quarterback.
Okay.
So good for them. Um, Someone asked me about the Chiefs' Pat Mahomes. They're expected to run in around 8.2 games. And that's a pretty big step back from how they were under Alex Smith. Now, part of it is the rosters also has some issues. It's not all like they're switching them at homes, but it is a big change. The plus side is they have a good coach with Andy Reid, so they're going to do their best to put Mahomes in situations to succeed. His arm is strong as hell, so they're going to be able to stretch defenses. So we'll see. And then we get to the flip side. We have teams like the Titans and the Panthers at around 7.9 wins. That's Marcus Mariota and Cam Newton. Cam Newton won the MVP a couple years ago, but his numbers weren't all that great, and the roster simply just fell apart. So what we're going to see about them. The Titans, like Mariota, has looked good. They won a playoff game against the Chiefs last year, and then they got smashed. Um, I don't love their roster. I do like Mariota. I don't love him. I think he's a good quarterback. And then you have the Lions with Matt Stafford. Now, they're another team that they've been a playoff team. They've been better than average, but they just don't beat other good teams. It's become weird at this point. Um, they have a coaching change. Maybe that'll help them out. You have the Giants at 7.3 with Eli Manning, or the corpse of Eli Manning at this point, because I really wish the Giants had drafted their quarterback in the future. I would have accepted a trade down, like, because picks are good, but taking a running back second overall just shows a lack of understanding of positional value. There's only so much a running back can do for you. Running backs do not lead to championships, quarterbacks do. So bad ownership, bad management, bad draft. So the Giants are in for some hurting. You have the Colts at 7.3 wins. That's Andrew Luck. We don't know if Andrew Luck will be able to be healthy and perform during the regular season. Like, it's been a while, and they've certainly misled us about the level of injury to his shoulder. So we're gonna have to wait and see what he can do during regular season action. Can he withstand the pounding? Are we gonna see him for 16 games or like 14 or 15? I don't know. I'm doubtful.
Yeah.
And then we come to the Raiders with Derek Carr. Now, Derek Carr, even when the Raiders went 12-4, wasn't that great. He was good, but he wasn't great. And the Raiders certainly collapsed without him because they didn't have anyone else. Last year, the Raiders had a rough season, and this year they're expected to win around 7.2 games. And that could be generous with their defense without Khalil Mack, and their offense. I mean, they've done a lot of dumb things this offseason. Their receiver corps looks bad. Just the Raiders, I actually was curious if they had any incentive to tank before heading to Las Vegas. And I don't think so. I don't think the NFL works that way unless you're trying to get an elite quarterback, and they should feel like they have their quarterback in the future. So I don't know what the Raiders' plans are, but they are going to be bad. Then you have the Bengals at 7.2 wins, who I think could be quite good with Andy Dalton. I think they could bounce back, but I don't know. I always seem to think that about them. The Seahawks, again, 7.2 wins. They have a competent quarterback. Do you know how bad you have to be doing at building your roster to have a competent quarterback and only expected to win 7.2 wins? Congratulations, Seahawks. That's where you are at this point. The Washington Redskins at 7.1 wins. Alex Smith, like, they have a competent quarterback. Are they really not going to win 8 games? Like, you're in the NFL, you have a competent quarterback. Not everyone does. It's hard not to win 8 games when you have a quarterback who knows how to throw the ball and read defenses.
Sure.
And like the Seahawks and Redskins do. So, like, those are teams that are probably better than their projections. That's what I think anyway. You have the Bears, 7.03 wins with Mitch Trubisky and Khalil Mack, and they've got at least a lot of excitement in Chicago. Maybe Trubisky will make the second year leap, like Wentz in golf. I keep saying that. It's not golf, it's golf. Wentz and Goff both had really, really good second years in the league, and maybe Trubisky could do the same. Well, I don't know. We'll see. Dolphins, Ryan Tannehill. The Dolphins, just another team, poor roster construction, poor ownership. Poor ownership leads to poor management, and yeah, good luck, Dolphins. Um, Arizona Cardinals, Sam Bradford. Like, Sam Bradford's problem is staying healthy. Like, he was good with the Vikings during the brief time he was able to stay healthy, and then he was gone. Um, oh wait, I skipped the Broncos. Um, 7.4 wins with Case Keenum. So Case Keenum, I think he led the NFL in DVOA last year. But that's another situation where how much of that was him and how much of that was the Vikings roster and coaching staff? Because 2 years ago with the Rams, Keenum was terrible. And so, the Mike Zimmer, the Vikings head coach, actually asked, "Well, which one is he? Is he the one we had last year? Or is he the one with the Rams 2 years ago?" And the answer is he's no longer on the Vikings roster. So I guess we know what Zimmer thinks.
Yep, yep.
And they saw him every week in practice, so they would know better than us. And so now he's with the Broncos, but maybe he's a competent quarterback. Maybe the Broncos defense was still, it wasn't great last year, but it was still good. Give them a competent quarterback, and maybe the Broncos are a dark horse. So I don't know. They've got a chance. Anyway, back to the Cardinals. They have Sam Bradford. The Cardinals roster is just falling apart. And it's a matter of time before Bradford gets hurt. So that's about 6 wins. The Browns, 6 wins for them. Woo! That's more wins than they've had in the last, I think, 3 years combined. So yeah, they got Tyrod Taylor, and they took the guy from Oklahoma whose name is escaping me right now. You happen to remember? Thank you. So yeah, he went first overall. The analytics loved him, but Big 12 quarterbacks, there have not been too many succeeding in the NFL lately, despite the fact that they've had a lot of quarterbacks putting up amazing numbers in college. And I think part of that was scheme, part of that was just defenses being outmatched in that conference. And so, I'm kind of skeptical of him. I'm happy he's not a Jet. I'm a lot happier that the Jets have Sam Darnold. He looked competent at USC. He looked good this preseason. So good luck for the Jets. They might actually have their quarterback in the future, which is a nice change. But yeah, the Browns have Taylor, and the Browns they have a hope for the future. So good for them. The Buccaneers, Jameis Winston, he's has problems. He's suspended for the first 3 weeks of the season, and another bad roster. The Jets mentioned Sam Darnold. Hopefully they've got hope for the future. I mean, I hate the fact that we gave up 3 second-round draft picks to move up to 6th because we have a lot of holes in the roster. But whatever, we did what we did. And finally, you have in last place Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills at 4.9 wins. The Bills have had bad ownership and bad management for a while. They've traded up a lot. They do not have as many draft picks going forward in the future as would be required. So the Bills, not only did they draft the wrong quarterback, Allen's just terrible. He's not a quarterback. He was terrible at Wyoming, which means he's not going to be any better in the NFL. And they don't have the draft picks to rebuild the roster in the future. So Jets, some future. Bills, no future.
So. Yeah, as I say, I can't think of a quarterback off the top of my head that was much better in the pros than he was in college.
The thing. It's really, really hard to do that. I mean, I guess if you were to look hard enough, you might find someone. I mean, Montana was solid with Notre Dame, but he wasn't Joe Montana. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone in the 3rd round. I mean, Tom Brady went to the 6th round. You basically want to look for guys that went a lot later and then became great pros. But Russell Wilson's not a good example because he was great in college. He was just short. And NFL teams were biased against that. So.
Sure. Okay, so you went over each team, and I thank you for that. As far as the simulations you've been running for the current season, is there anything that's leaping off the page as being quite interesting or crazy that you might be able to share?
So you have the 4 NFC favorites. I don't and they all have a rough, smallish range in their projected win totals. That is not what I'm getting on my own internal projections. I think the Vikings could be freaking great this year. The last thing people remember from the Vikings when they're getting absolutely housed by the Eagles in the AFC Championship game, that was just everything went wrong for them. They were outcoached, they were outplayed. It was just a nightmare day. But they're still really, really, really good. They have a strong defense, they have a strong offense. Their offensive line could be an issue, but if they can get that to work, if they can give Cousins time, he was really, really good 2 or 3 years ago in Washington. He could still be really good with the Vikings. They've got a lot of talent around him. So the Vikings are my NFC favorite, and I have the Eagles behind them, quarterback health permitting. And I see a drop off to the Saints and to the Rams. The market isn't seeing. So that is my own personal opinion. In the AFC, like the Steelers are good, the Patriots are good, but the Patriots always have the coaching edge, the tactical advantages when they play each other. So it's really, really hard to see anyone but the Patriots, even now, coming out of the AFC. So that's my Super Bowl. I have the Patriots walking over weak AFC with only one rival that they just don't lose to. And the NFC, I have the Vikings first among the Elite Four, and the Eagles a little behind just because of their quarterback issues.
Okay, so I'm guessing you answered. You kind of implied one of the answers to the questions here. The biggest threats to the Patriots this year. I'm guessing the only thing that would be a threat would probably be a Tom Brady injury. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, a Tom Brady injury, or just Tom Brady suddenly deciding, holy shit, this stuff's not working anymore. I'm old now. Like,
Yeah.
quarterbacks can grow old fast. And if that happens to him, if, like, let's just say his arm wears down later in the season, that could be a huge problem for them. But I think they're playing the Texans week one. Like, this could be a week where we could see, wait, the Texans are for real. Like, the Texans have a lot of defensive talent. Watson was awesome last season. They're a team that, if things go well for them, then yeah, they're a rival. They could be the next AFC team. I'm a lot less confident in the Chargers. Like, the good news for them is their division got a lot worse. Like, they no longer have Alex Smith to face with the Chiefs. Like, the Raiders have self-destructed. And the Broncos, maybe Case Keenum is the guy he was with the Rams. And so they could get kind of a cakewalk for the regular season for the division, come to the playoffs with 10 wins. But I don't view them as a real heavyweight. Like, the AFC has two heavyweights and a possible third with the Watson-led Texans.
Okay.
Whereas the NFC they have the big four, and then they have Green Bay and Atlanta, maybe the 49ers, the Cowboys. Like, the NFC is a lot tougher than the AFC, and that's been the Patriots' secret weapon, like a weak conference.
Yeah, it's almost like LeBron going to the finals
Yeah,
every year.
exactly right. So, and now LeBron is in the West, and he'll get some time off in June. So good for him.
Yeah, yep. All right. So I forgot when you were mentioning who you thought was going to make the Super Bowl. Do you have
Vikings and Patriots?
You have the Patriots winning it?
Nope.
Vikings. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think I'm looking over our list here, and I think we've covered all our points. Is there anything else you want to end this on? Normally we're used to doing this for like an hour, but this is pretty. I mean, I don't mind it being a little shorter, but is there anything else that you could think of that we haven't discussed that you might want to mention?
Well, we did get a couple different questions, or at least I think we got one question about what is appropriate on a first date. I don't know whether or not you feel that question is appropriate.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, that's fine. You know how my podcast is. So yeah, we can cover that.
So, my personal politics don't really come up, but I'm one of those diehard batshit insane libertarians. And if you want to do something on a first date, you want to go bass to mouth, go right ahead. Like, you're not hurting anyone else, and if that's your thing, and if you both are into it, like, go on, have a great time. You might not want to have Mexican for dinner the night, up to you, but like, yeah, you do you let your freak flag fly. So that's the thing. You want to find a partner that you're comfortable with, and if that's going to be one of your tests, if that's what you want in a partner that you're going to be with, like, let them know. Because like, if you're trying to deceive them, and then you put a ring on it, and then you get married, and then, like, on your ring night, well, now that we're married, I have something to tell you. Like, like, maybe happy ever after, but like, that's a big gamble. So, first date might be a little early, but you don't want to wait too late either. So,
no, it makes sense. What were the other questions we had here?
So the other question was, what does it take to get banned from various sports books?
Okay.
Now, At Pinnacle, you pretty much just don't get banned unless you're trying to actually run like a computer attack on them, like hit their APIs, try to like you have to do some pretty strange shit for Pinnacle to not want to deal with you anymore. So from them, for the most part, like just bet big, good luck. Like if you're any good, we'll work off you. If not, we'll take your money. So that's Pinnacle. Five Dimes. Tony, the last time Tony booted me, it was a really philosophical discussion. Like it should have been honestly on the good place, like the chat we had, because we got into a very zen discussion about what is the nature of betting and what is a bet. And Tony felt with the combinations of bets I was making, whatever else, I wasn't taking an appropriate amount of risk. I was offloading it and still keeping my edge. And my personal opinion was if your own site is in its own very complicated way arbitrageable against itself, well then why are you blaming me for this? And we disagreed on this, but it's Tony's house. And yeah, another time I got booted for crushing them on lower level college football. The ones with playoffs and such. And
Okay.
so he didn't like that. I'm not sure. We didn't really have a chat about that one. I don't know if it was just a matter of if you're going to beat me on football, beat me on real football, not this crap. But whatever else, he got offended by that. And then there's the Greek, and this I don't know if Spyro's still there, but this was AHL hockey. This was another one where this really isn't the stuff that we want to be losing on. We're like we don't need you for this. We're putting these lines up as a courtesy to our casual customers, and you're not being casual about this. And so what they did was they limited us, and they said you have to call in bets. And we called in about a basketball game. It was the Toronto Raptors. I don't remember who they were facing, but the bet got declined. And I heard this through the grapevine later. Like they were actually rather embarrassed about this. Like not for limiting us, but for not taking a bet on a basketball game because basketball was really their house. That was what they focused on. And so I think it was just an oversight that that bet was declined. But it was still like one of those. All right, if you're not taking a bet on like us calling a bet on basketball, you're just not taking action for us. So we're effectively booted. Um, like Bovada, I don't consider them a real sports book. I hate it when people quote them on Twitter like they're just garbage. And they're just, I mean, Chris, I don't know how many people play there. I know got booted from there. I think got booted from there once. I think that just might have been simply a math thing where, okay, this has been enough money, go away. But I'm actually not positive because this would have been a while back. So, um, but yeah, look, if you're playing at real sports books, Tony could be offended, but otherwise, if you're not doing like silly shit, if you're not beating them on the stuff they don't take seriously, then you're not going to get booted. Like if you're putting all your bets in on props and other stuff where you're putting in the work and they simply just aren't for they have only so many hours in a day to work on this stuff, then I get it from both sides. Like you're doing what you can to put food on the table, and they're doing what they can to protect themselves where they know there's always going to be a week. So yeah,
Okay.
that's my thought on getting booted from sportsbooks.
Okay. And we didn't really touch base on this. I don't know. This could be a whole different podcast, but with the in the past couple months with the legalization of sports betting, have you noticed any changes amongst your circle? I mean, I'm guessing the legalization part is more for the lower level betters than
So yeah, I
higher level.
mean, they've legalized recreational sports betting at terrible odds. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the minus 118s, and like if that's the line you're putting up on some like random high school game just so people can have the opportunity to bet on it, I get that. I understand you're operating with the same lack of knowledge as most people are. Okay, you're providing a service. If you're putting that up on major college football, go fuck yourself. Like honestly, like
Yeah.
you deserve to die. Um, so I would like to see real sports books. Like minus 110 isn't good. But I get it. I understand it. It's the gateway to people betting online and betting -104, -105, and whatever else. But -118 is just an insult. And so, no, sports betting hasn't really been legalized yet. I don't know if it ever will be. In terms of like, you can come in and make a real bet, and like, they don't go behind the counter and talk about whether or not I want to take it. Like, if you can walk in and bet $5,000 at -105, sports betting's been legalized. It's a real market. It's actual liquidity. We're not there yet. It's certainly
Okay.
some kind of thing that can be. It's possible. It's just not here. So,
Okay. So yeah, that you provide a different perspective on that because obviously everyone's going apeshit about the ability to do it, like down the road, 3 or 5 years from now at your local casino. But for you, it's going to be a different experience than you
well,
know.
I'm doubtful that we're going to see a real legalized sports betting where people could walk in and bet legitimate sums of money at decent odds. If that were to happen, great. Like, even a place that was cloning Pinnacle at three pips worse. So like, if Pinnacle's dealing -104, you're dealing -107 on the game. Like, that would, and the way it would work is you put the bet in, you'd offer the bet, the website, the people would go to Pinnacle, and it's not legal right now to do such things. But let's just say, for whatever reason, it were, or through an intermediate, through an exchange that would obviously be themselves cloning Pinnacle. Um, that would be a couple steps process, but yeah, that's the kind of thing that could theoretically exist, um, and that would be a lot better. We don't have that right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I figured we should at least touch base on something betting wise. I know we were referencing it, but okay. Well, I think that was it as far as questions. I don't remember there being too many more. So I think we could call this a wrap, Seth. Thanks for joining. I don't know if I'll be recording again anytime soon, but I always appreciate your time and your insight.
Oh, it was a great time here. And you know what? You know who I haven't seen on Twitter in a while because he's been banned? Lou. It's been a
Oh
while since
yeah,
I've seen Lou.
yeah. It's a little
So,
weird. Yeah, yeah. He was. We snuck into the DMs and he was asking about actually doing a podcast with me, and then the next thing I knew, I didn't see that DM message anymore, and turns out when I researched his name, it was suspended. So
well, do you have his email address?
I do. I have his information. So
Yeah.
uh,
So, like, I would love to hear from him again. If you can, reach out to him. So, like, we need a little bit more Lou in our lives, and I'm sure at this point he's built up enough anger to have plenty of things to share. So,
sure. Sure, yeah, I'll have to reach out to him outside of Twitter. I mean, I'm sure he'll return in some form or fashion, but in the
he's
meantime,
good at
I'll
that. But yeah.
yeah. But yeah, thanks, Seth. Appreciate your time. Good luck this season. Enjoy the Jets. Hopefully, they don't make you cry.
Oh,
Um,
I mean, being a Jets fan is pain in some way. Like, again, we got bad ownership and bad management. We traded 3 second-round picks to move up from sixth to third in a quarterback deep draft. So, like, no, we're dumb. We're gonna be bad.
so
But
so
at
yeah,
least with Darnold, we have some hope.
so tears are inevitable then.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thanks, Seth. Thanks everyone for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.